Hello, everybody, and welcome to Introduction to Composition. This is Tim, your piano teacher here, of course, and today we're talking about the motive, which is a very, well, you'll see what I mean actually in a second. So there's some instructions there for you. You know, if you have that icon, that's like where you can find some blank sheet paper to write on, and then you have your little sound icon as well. So a motive, sometimes spelled as a motive, so you can say motive or motive, same kind of thing, is a short musical idea, very short, that reoccurs throughout a phrase, section, or entire piece. So, you know, like, that's your motive, right, in Beethoven's Fifth, which we'll talk about in a little bit, actually. It's the smallest musical structure that can be considered a thematic element. So it helps create the theme of a song, a motive. A motive can be a pattern made up of a distinct set of notes, chords, rhythm, or any combination of the three. So it doesn't always have to be, you know, like that, where it's all pitches. It can literally be like, I basically took the rhythm motive from Jingle Bells and I just applied it to a single note. So it can be like that because you have the same rhythm that you can identify throughout the piece. That's a motive. It can be, you know, it can even be like that, where it's pitches. You know, I have that pitch pattern, but I change the rhythm. So it can be, you know, it can even be a set of chords that you use as well. So it can be, you know, melody, rhythm, chords, or any of combination of that. So what makes a motive recognizable in a piece of music is the repetition of the motive, right? So it has to be repetitive. The motive acts as the glue for the framework tying together a piece that may otherwise contain a lot of variety and different materials. So if you've been writing songs up to now in my other music theory courses, you may notice that they might not, which is something we haven't really talked about a whole lot, they might not have structure like a lot of other songs we have where you have repeated sections, repeated ideas. So that's really what we're combining into this course to our compositions. There are three types of main motive. We already talked about this: melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic. So unity and variety. So when composing music, one of the most important things to do is consider the balance between unity and variety. So if you have the same thing all the time, it's going to get boring, right? But if you change it all the time, it's not going to be recognizable to the ear in any sort of meaningful way. So unity refers to unifying patterns, which can be notes, rhythms, chords again. And a motive often acts as a unifying factor, so unifying in a place of music. So your motive is your vehicle to unify the ideas of your piece. Unity, often through repetition, is necessary to distinguish the composition to listeners. The catchiest songs and the most iconic pieces are successful and stand the test of time because of a well-established motive. So any of Michael Jackson songs, you know, beat it, do 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 do. That is something that's your motive. You know, you recognize that. Okay, so here we go. Variety, and then, you know, obviously for Elise, something like that. Okay, so variety refers to changes and variations in a composition, often in the motive. So unity and repetition alone become boring and uninteresting to the ear. So variety is also an important factor when considering the listener's attention span and interest. So it's a balance between those two. Okay, variety can be achieved different ways, some of which is adding slight changes to the melody, harmony, rhythm. Techniques to add variety will be discussed in detail later. So throughout this course, consider how unity and variety ought to be balanced in a musical idea, phrase, or piece. So melodic motives. A melodic motive is a motive centered around a specific pattern of notes. Melodic motives can be short, as like 2 or 3 notes, but it is the repetition and reoccurrence of the central idea that makes the collection notes of a motive. So, like we talked about in the beginning, that's your motive, really. That appears so many times in Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, and then just by hearing that, even that, the first part of it, you know right away what it is. So the motive is initially stated. Beethoven creatively restates the notes over and over again at different pitches. and using different instruments, providing variety of a simple pattern. So he's providing that variety there. Okay. A harmonic motive is a motive centered around a certain harmonic structure. So we'll explain here in a second. Often a series of chords. Harmonic motives, well, they'll be covered more in the next unit, are effective as a kind of structural glue because the harmonic content can be repeated and remain relatively the same, while the melody and rhythm may change as the piece progresses. So the best example of this, I think, is Pachelbel's Canon in D, which I can't really read because it's very tiny, but let's see. So basically, every time you go through the progression, it's the same progression, right? But every time we're changing a little bit about it to maintain interest. Whoops. So I play the same exact chord progression, I change it a little bit each time, and that's the perfect example of a harmonic motive. Alright. Rhythmic motifs. Rhythmic motive is a motive centered around a distinct rhythm pattern. So if you see from this example below, Wagner's Bridal Chorus. So you notice that, even though I'm changing pitches, you have that bump, 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 but it does that over and over again rhythmically. There you go. Did I say Wagner or Wagner? Is what I meant if I said Wagner. Sorry about that. I don't even know if I said that or not. Rhythmic motives, when effective, can be recognized even without the song. So bump, bump, but so even if I said that bump, well, I started to do the pitches there. Bump, bump, but if I did that to somebody, maybe they might not know, but some of them may go, oh, let's hear Here Comes the Bride, and they know it just by the rhythm. So notice how it changes the pattern, though, to maintain interest. Practice exercises identifying a motive. So read through the following example of music while listening to the corresponding audio clips. Identify recurring motivic themes, including melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic content. So this is the Tell Overture by Rossini. The melody shown below starts about 14 seconds. End of the clip. What makes this piece sound like galloping? Well, you can probably tell right away, right? Oops. Oh, if I could play a little better, or let me see. Oh, it's so tiny. Oh. Well, it's the eighth, 16th, dun 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 dun. That sounds like galloping. Bump 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 bump. So it uses that rhythmic galloping to kind of. By the way, it's called William Tell Overture as well, if you recognize it as that way. Also, other people call it Get Away. I've seen it in children's books called that. But it really sounds like galloping because of the rhythm. Okay, identifying a motive. So read through the following example of music while listening to the corresponding audio clips. Identify recurring motivic themes. I can let you listen to this on your own. Pretty much harmonic and rhythmic content. So the melody shown below starts about 8 seconds into the clip. If you play it from here, what gives this piece its signature Spanish sound? So let's go over that part of it. Let's see. So bump, 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 bump. So I would say I would say the pitches, right? You go bum, bum, down chromatically. Like that. So I'd say, it's a more of a harmonic motive, but even the rhythm, bump, bump, ba da da, bump, 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 ba, 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 ba. Although that one probably isn't quite as recognizable. That's not like Here Comes the Bride, where bump, bump, ba da. I kind of did the pitches there. It's really hard to do without the pitches, but if you do it just strictly by the rhythm, I wouldn't say that gives it its Spanish sound. I would say it's the chromaticism there and the scale that they are using. Okay, identifying a motive. This one's pretty easy, I would say. Oops. So, where's the motive at? Well, it's this, right? Now, this is rhythmic, right? Since you have these like triplet patterns in there. There's three, the triplets. But is it all rhythmic? So let me just play this triplet one note at a time. If I played that, would you recognize it? Well, not really, right? It's a combination of both the rhythm. So maybe if I played the pitches, change the rhythm to it, you would still recognize it. So I'd say it's more melodic based in nature, this motive, because or more pitch based rather, notes up and down, because it's really these that you recognize. So the motive is really what you recognize throughout the piece, but it still is that group of three. So it's actually a combination of the rhythm along with the melody, and then even the harmony below does provide a little bit of a recognition, even though that changes a bit more. Okay, so you're supposed to compose a motive of your own. It can be easy. Oops. Like that. It can be, I would think about songs you do know, but just think of like a little like repetitive thing you can come up with on the piano. So like, and that will be your motive. So it's just very simple. You don't need to write a whole song yet. Or that's a repetitive series of pitches and rhythms that you would use throughout the whole song. So it's very simple. It can be catchy. It doesn't necessarily have to be. But think of maybe even harmony too. So you have your repetitive pattern down here, chord progression, along with pitches, along with your rhythm and things like that. So write like maybe a measure or two motive. If you want it to make it really easy, if you're new to this, just write like a simple little like piece of a melody there, just as long as it's a motive. You can add the rhythmic elements to it, or the harmonic elements to it if you're feeling really advanced, and then go from there. And then start thinking about your motives, before you compose a piece or while you're drafting a piece, coming up with theological ideas. Think about motives, and how they can fit in to your song. Oh, right, clefs, time signature, and all that stuff as well. So review. I think the biggest thing to get out of this unit is that a motive is a small musical idea repeated over and over again throughout a piece. And it helps you recognize the piece, but it shouldn't be overly repetitive, but it shouldn't be changing all the time either, or too much, because then you won't be able to recognize it. But if you keep it the same too often, sure, your song will have a lot of structure, but it will be boring. Could you imagine if just Beethoven's Fifth did this over and over again? After a while, it'll sound a lot less like Beethoven's Fifth and sound more like a doorbell. That's it, or an alarm or something. Compositions, okay, I already said this, rely on balance between unity and variety. The three types of motifs are what? Melodic, harmonic, and rhythmic, and a combination of all three a lot of times. Let's see. Okay, I basically said that already. It uses a combination and uses variety. And then tip, when trying to come up with a motive or thematic idea, sit at the piano or any instrument that you're familiar with, choose a key, and improvise. And come up with this short pattern, very short, and then repeat it. So I already came up with a motive, which is melodic and rhythmic in nature. And then if I repeat the chords throughout the song, that adds in a harmonic element as well. So, like I said, where to take this? Well, right. So if you made it this far through Music Theories 1, 2, and 3, or you're just familiar with those topics already, you know how to write very simple songs. 1, 4, 5 chord progression, 1, 2, 5, 1. You know how to replace some of the chords with others. Writing simple melodies. Now what I want you to do is start thinking about how to write your motive first. I mean, think about maybe what key you want to do or play around a little bit. But then come up with some motifs and see if you can add them throughout the piece to see if you can add a little more structure, since I think a lot of the songs we've been writing so far have been a little bit more freeform. I mean, they do have structure, they're 4 bars long, things like that, but I mean in terms of melodic, rhythmic, and repetitive patterns that you see again and again, just think about incorporating those, coming up with those, and then incorporating those in your pieces, and then let me know how you do if you want. So anyway, this has been Tim from Lessons on the Web, you know that, and I'll see you for the Unit 2 concepts video. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you later.